Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Gray. The best thing about being a nurse and entrepreneur over the last 25 years are the relationships I've developed and the people I've met. As a legal nurse consultant, I wanted you to hear from those amazing people in the legal and healthcare communities. I wanted you to hear who they are and to celebrate them with me. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered. Let's dive into the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm super excited to have my guest, Lakeisha. Lakeisha, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you being here. So I can't wait to get started and find out more about you and let everybody hear who you are and all about you. So thank you again for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much, Anna. I'm really excited to be on the podcast today and to just share a little bit more about myself with you.
Great, thanks. Okay, and we talked a little bit before we went live here. Can you tell everyone where you're coming from in the States?
Sure. So I am a San Diego native. I come from sunny San Diego. I've lived here most of my life. I went to undergrad here, and after undergrad, I worked at a local hospital and then actually left San Diego, left California for a couple of years for the big city. I moved to New York City for graduate school, went to NYU, did the big city experience. Everything that you could think would be possibly different from San Diego is what I experienced in New York City. Had a great, awesome time there, and found my way coming back home about 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm back in San Diego now. Spring is here, I think, hopefully. Weather is getting warmer, and definitely love being in San Diego. It's a beautiful city.
Okay, so we're gonna have to dig in a little bit about this because number one, you're my first West Coast guest. Woo woo. I'm super excited about that because I am on the West Coast. And number two, I grew up in San Diego. So I absolutely know the love of San Diego. I left San Diego. I never came back, but my heart is still there. My family is still there. So are you on the north, south, east side of San Diego? I'm curious.
I'm pretty in the center of the city. I live in Mission Valley. So if you're
Okay.
familiar with the San Diego area, right down the street from where Qualcomm Stadium, Jack Murphy Stadium was now, it's now Snapdragon Stadium.
Yeah.
So really in the center of the city, right off Friars Road.
Mhm.
I'm no more than 10 minutes away from any of the local beaches, walking distance from the mall, which is sometimes a
Yeah.
good thing and sometimes not.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I'm just able to really get around to the hiking trails very easily. Get to, I work in La Jolla, so getting to that part of town is very easy as well. I really like living in this part of the city.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. So lovely. I love hearing that. Okay, so you grew up in San Diego. You went to school, you went to undergrad in San Diego. Where did you go to undergrad?
Yes. So I spent most of my life in San Diego. Being quite honest, both of my parents were in the military, so I moved quite a bit. San Diego's home. I was born in Japan, lived in
Wow.
Hawaii, but then kind of traveled here early in life, and so I spent overwhelming majority of my life here in San Diego. So I went to undergrad at San Diego State University, or SDSU. Go
Mhm.
Aztecs! So very, very reputable or university with an amazing nursing program. And I had a great experience. San Diego
Mhm.
State is, a very, very, very big college experience. I met a lot of amazing people, made incredible connections that I still have today. And I really loved it. It's a great university.
So you went right into nursing school at San Diego State.
I did. Right after I
Yeah.
graduated from high school, I was one of those people who just knew what I wanted to do. I
Yeah.
knew from a very young age that nursing was something that was within me and something that I wanted to do. So after I graduated from high school, I intentionally selected schools that I applied to that had strong nursing programs. And gratefully, I was able to stay close to home, go to San Diego State, which has such a great nursing program. And I went straight in, got into the nursing program there, and had a great experience during my bachelor's.
Wow, that's exciting. I'm telling you, the majority of the people that I have spoken to on this podcast have gone that route. A lot of people have gone that route, but then there are others that, like myself, did not go directly into nursing school. Um, so I love the fact that you knew what you were planning on doing. Is there something that made you think, okay, I have always wanted to be a nurse? Was there something that you experienced when you were younger or saw or were around? Tell me a little bit more about how you knew you wanted to be a nurse so early.
Such a great question. I feel like so many of us, you can find so much about a person based off of their passions and their experiences and what led them to their professions or other experiences or hobbies. When I was younger, both of my parents were in the military, as I stated, and my mom ended up being a single parent, raising both me and my brother and my sister. So she had her hands full. We were all pretty young at the time. And my mom was actually hit by a drunk driver when we lived in Hawaii. And as part of her recovery process, she had to, go to the hospital. She had some surgeries, had some imaging done. And around that time, we found out that she had thyroid cancer. It was complete incidental finding, just as a result of that accident. When my mom was recovering, going through, surgeries and treatments and follow-ups, she was actually going through a divorce during that time as well. My mother and my father. So my brother and myself and my sister, we ended up spending quite a bit of time in healthcare settings with my mom, just visiting her, seeing her, accompanying her, going to appointments. And I really got a grasp at a young age of the impact and the power of medical professionals, especially nursing. I remember looking back and just always feeling that my mom was taken care of, that there were people that were looking out for her, that there was information that was provided, and that we were really a priority. And that always stuck with me. I know my mom was going through such a challenging time, going through a divorce and raising three small children. And looking back now, I have this profound appreciation because I know it was the care that the nurses provided, not only to my mom, but to my siblings as well when we were there with her. That really helped my mom to take care of herself, really, right? Like it gave her the permission to know, okay, I'm in a setting with people who care, I trust them. And when my kids are here, they're also, given age appropriate information, they're talked to, they're appreciated as well. So that really stuck with me.
Mhm.
Now that I'm, much older into adult life, those experiences really have stuck with me. They've stayed in my heart. They've been near and dear to me. And I've always wanted to have that impact on other people. A lot of times as nurses, as healthcare professionals, we feel very comfortable in healthcare settings. We go to the hospitals, we go to clinics, we go to surgery centers. These are places we feel comfortable in, that we go in without problems, with ease. And it's really important that we remember a lot of our patients don't, right? They're entering
Mhm.
these facilities and these settings sometimes at the scariest points of their lives, getting diagnoses that are difficult, having treatments that are hard to go through. And just knowing that when you are a healthcare provider, you are providing that compassion, that security to other people. It's really a gift, I believe, and I think it is something that's really ingrained within a lot of us who are very passionate about nursing and really care about our patients. So, in a nutshell, that was an experience that I had at a very young age. It shaped me, and I've always wanted to be able to impact patients and their families in a positive way and support them in the time that they need. And thankfully,
Mhm.
my mom's doing very well. She is my best friend. I talk to her every single day, and I credit and attribute a lot of her recovery and her health to the team that helped her. Right, it always
Yeah.
takes to get people through those times.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that you shared that. I think, them obviously sharing their gift with your mom and you being a part of that was so special that sometimes we as nurses forget, like you said, that we are providing a gift. We don't look at it as a gift necessarily, but on the other side, clearly to the patients and to their families, it is a gift and something that has stuck with you forever, really. I mean, it still holds a wonderful place in your heart. So you clearly chose the path that you were meant to choose. And it happened to be because one of the reasons was because these nurses gave the gift of themselves to your mom and to you and your siblings. And so I absolutely love the fact that you shared that, because we don't sometimes we lose that part of that picture, and not everybody has that. I mean, I know for me, I that's not my story. It wasn't a heartfelt story that touched me, but for many, many, many nurses it was. And that's what, they chose their path because of that. And so it's a reminder to all of us, right, that our nurses, that not to forget that. So I'm so grateful that you shared that, and I'm really grateful that that was your path, because I think that's an amazing choice to go down that road because of your experience. Okay, so you went through nursing school. When you went through nursing school and you were young, did you already have an idea of a specialty that you wanted to go to or go through? Was there an experience during nursing school that really stood out to you when it came to, okay, I want to be a nurse. Now, where am I headed with this? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. One of the beautiful things about nursing as well is that there are so many specialties. There are so many areas, so many avenues that you can be in that are fulfilling and so, so different. That's one of the great things I've loved about your podcast is just listening into to different nurses from different backgrounds and really just learning about their path, but also their experiences, which are so different from my own and obviously some similarities as well. I specialize in oncology, and similarly, because during that time period with my mom, when she got diagnosed with thyroid cancer, a lot of the specialty appointments that she went to, or a lot of the people that we were in touch with, were oncology care team members. There were some surgical team members as well, but the oncology ones, the oncology nurses, the medical oncologist, her surgeon, all of those people really impacted me, the nurses. And oncology is such an interesting and really, really multifaceted and dynamic specialty. There's so many different types of cancers, so many different types of treatments. Patient populations are, cancer affects everybody, unfortunately. And I
Mhm.
think with the advent of, more technology, more research, we're really making great strides within oncology, but there's so much work to be done. So there's so much that I love about it. It's multidisciplinary. I get to work with not only nurses, other nurse practitioners, physicians, social workers, physical therapists. It really takes a multidisciplinary team to provide the best care to patients that have a cancer diagnosis. And one thing I've learned, right, is cancer, and similar to a lot of different avenues, specialties, and things, it's not a monolith, right? You think of cancer and you may think of one thing or the other, but our patients are very dynamic. They come from all different backgrounds, all ages, and it affects them differently based off of the disease status, how they're doing, the staging of the disease, et cetera. So
Right.
I'm always learning. There's
Hmm.
no dull moment in oncology. And I think it takes a lot out of you physically, mentally, emotionally, but as much as it is challenging because there's so many organ processes that can be impacted and so much to learn, it is the most rewarding profession to me. Something I absolutely love. And I really, really am grateful to be utilizing my gifts and to be in a specialty that I am and so passionate about.
Yeah, that's a gift. That's a gift. I'm glad you shared that. So, when you were going through your program, did you have a good, I'm guessing you had a good experience in that oncology route, um, knowing that that's where you wanted to head. Um, did you get much experience when you were initially training? Was it exactly what you expected? Was it better? Was it, you know,
Yeah.
Oh, tell me a little bit about that experience as a student, even in that oncology route, because I like to talk about that, because sometimes, obviously we end up in years later, sometimes we end up in different roles, but I think nursing school in itself, and it was so many years ago for me. But it's still there are pieces of it that are just still so memorable and impactful that I really like to hear those stories. I mean, it was 25 years ago for me, so more than 25 years ago. So, but it's still memorable.
Mhm.
Nursing school was a big part of our lives. So when it comes to going in the oncology route and the experience with your mom, tell me more about the experience during nursing school and how that impacted your decision in going into oncology as well.
I had a wonderful experience at San Diego State, and I think being here locally, I there was the opportunity to pick clinical sites or rotations that would offer me a variety of settings and experiences while I was in school. So I do feel very fortunate in that. I know most nursing programs, you kind of have your base. You get some type of pediatrics, you get some type of women's health, you get some type of critical care. And that's always great. I think that's important for any program to have a variety and to have kind of those basic elemental departments and specialties that are critically important. But I did have the opportunity to do some clinical rotations and oncology departments here in San Diego. It was very helpful for me. I always do think, when you read something in a textbook, it's very rarely the same way in an actual practice, right? You learn so much in the textbook and you're like, okay, well, this is how this will look, or this is how a patient will be. But there's really nothing that can prepare you, I think, for being right in front of a patient and being able to talk to them and communicate with them and have dialogue. So, and there was a lot of information that I was given, and I felt that I had as much information and knowledge as I could. But when I first got into my first clinical rotation in oncology, it was such an incredible experience for me. I was a bit overwhelmed, I'm not going to lie, just being kind of this bright eyed, bushy tailed, young woman that is just so eager to learn. But also just realizing there's so much to learn. Where do you start? How do you digest this information? So just taking it bit by bit, just really asking a lot of questions. I had great preceptors. I really was fortunate enough to be placed in departments that really believed in students, that really appreciated the learning process, and were able to slow down to give me the teaching and the learning that I needed. So I really enjoyed it. I mean, I was kind of thrown in there if I wanted to,
Yeah.
access ports, if I wanted to talk to patients. My preceptors really gave me a lot of leeway to really have those experiences very early on. So I feel very fortunate for that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's great. And obviously, if you would have had not so great of an experience, maybe you wouldn't have gone down that road. So I had a feeling that you had a great experience. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
Okay, so let's take ourselves out of you. You started working in oncology. I'm guessing you got a job right off the bat because of that great experience and you being um, super, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, asking those questions, being the one that they wanted to hire. I back then that was much easier. For me at least back then it was much easier to get into. So, was it like that for you? Did you have a job right off the bat?
I did. I, again, very blessed to have that experience. I would say I did not understand the value of networking at that age, but that is something I would highly, highly recommend, all your listeners, every professional in every setting, utilize your network. Use every opportunity that you can to meet new people, even if they're in a different profession, different setting, different area. There's always something we can learn from somebody else. And when I was in my clinicals, I just asked a lot of questions. Like I said, I was bright eyed, bushy tailed, really just wanted to absorb everything, just like a sponge. And the manager there was excellent. And he saw my curiosity, he saw my passion, and he let me know there were going to be some openings. And I was able to interview for the position before I graduated. So, yes, I had my very first nursing job before graduation, which was incredible.
Yeah.
As you know, and everyone, that's the hardest part, right, of graduation. Everybody's thinking about the next step. Where am I going to be working? Am I going to get a job? So I was very, very grateful for that, and also to have a job and know kind of the layout, right? I knew the manager, I knew the team there, and I knew that that was going to be a great place for me to start my nursing career, just because of the nurturing and the support that was.
Yeah. You already knew it was a good setting, good environment for you. So good. Nice job. Way to go. I think that's great. Okay, so you start working and then you mentioned the fact that you continued your education later on. So how far along your journey of working as a nurse did you decide to make that decision, and how did that happen, and what was your goal with that?
Yeah. So as you can tell, I'm very passionate about nursing, and being a nurse and actually being in practice was a dream come true. It was everything that I thought it could be and more. Not saying it's all sunshine and rainbows, right? We all know every job has its challenges, its difficulties, moments where you're questioning, if you can continue. But I think for me, what I realized pretty early on in my nursing career too was that I felt that there was something more that I could give patients. And to me, I did a lot of reflection and introspection in terms of, does this mean I want to leave nursing? Does this mean that I want to stay within nursing? How do I want to give more to my patients? And for me, the more that I did some introspection and reflection and really thought about where I would be most fulfilled, but also where I could utilize my skills, was to get more education and to become a nurse practitioner. So that kind of started my journey of researching, just really trying to figure out what programs I wanted to do. There's different nurse practitioner programs that, are available. So which program did I want? Which university did I want to go to? Did I want to move? Did I want to stay? So that was a journey of really kind of delving into what the next steps would look like and what would be best for me. So I actually made the decision to leave the bedside and go back to school probably about 3, 4 years into my nursing career. So I had worked for about 3, 4 years, gotten experience, got my feet wet, really understood my clinical practice, felt pretty good about where I was going and what I wanted to do for patients. And that's when I started applying to schools. I applied to quite a few schools all over the country. I really thought if I was going to go back to school, I wanted a different experience. And I know you can appreciate this being a California girl.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot that we have here. It's a beautiful state. There's so much to offer, but it's a big country out here, right? There's a lot that you can experience. There's a lot that you can ascertain just from being in a different part of the country. So I ended up applying to many different schools in the Bay Area and New York City, Chicago, and DC. And once I got all of my admissions in, my acceptance letters, it was the hard decision of where to go. And after really contemplating, I fell in love with NYU. And so the bright eyed, bushy tailed San Diego girl sold everything, moved to New York City with about 3 suitcases, 6 boxes, and lived the big city dream and got my master's at NYU.
That's amazing. I love that. I've always kind of dreamt of that. Like you said, California girl, you always wonder, even though we have the best weather, there's a reason why people live in California. There's a reason why it's expensive, all of those things, and we still stay. But there is still that, I wonder what it's like to
Mhm.
go to the big city, and you did it. So I love the fact that you took that leap, that you had the faith in obviously your abilities, and that you just were ready to go. So I love that so much. And it's interesting that you ended up coming back to San Diego. It was like, okay, I lived it. I'm good. I'm good. Would you ever go back to New York?
Oh, that's such a good question. I miss New York City. I really do. I had a profound and incredible experience there. There's so much I learned about myself as a person. There's so much I grew personally, professionally. I made the most amazing connections there. It's where I met my husband. It's where I met, some of my closest friends, my bridesmaids in my wedding, a few years ago. I met them while in New York City. Um, I think one challenging part for me being in New York City is it is a very fast-paced environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're always on the go, you're always moving. And I think for me, it always helped me to stay one step ahead, right? I was always thinking
Mm-hmm.
step. But what I found over time for me as I got older was it was harder for me to stay present because
Mm.
in order to remain present, you have to be present. It's difficult to stay where you are without thinking about the next step. And in New York City, it's okay. I'm getting off work. Okay, if I take the subway, where's the train? Where's the closest subway stop? So you're always kind of making your next move your best move, so to speak. Um, so I always knew moving to New York City was going to be a different experience, and it provided me everything beyond my wildest dreams, but I also knew that this is probably not a place that I was going to settle or live permanently. So after I graduated from school, I ended up falling in love and staying in New York City for quite some time, just loving the city, loving everything about it. So I actually worked for NYU at the healthcare center for some time. And after that, I met my now husband, and the natural decision was, do we want to stay here as we, think about marriage and starting a family, or do we want to go back to our homes? And my husband's from the DC area, I'm from San Diego. So it's kind of a natural gravitation, East Coast versus West Coast.
Right.
And so when my husband, thought more about the weather and golfing year round, it was a pretty easy win.
Yeah. Yeah. Golfing. You said golf. That there you go. San Diego is the way is the place to be for sure. Okay. So that's wonderful. I love that. It's just so wonderful. Then you end up back in your hometown, and I'm sure, the comforts of being at home. And like you said, there's definitely a pace, a San Diego pace. And I don't know that I only know based on what you just said about the being in New York pace, but I do know the San Diego pace, and even compared to the Los Angeles pace is a step back. And so I can totally appreciate that. So I love that you've kind of found your home with your love, and that's wonderful. Okay. So you're
Mhm.
back in San Diego and you're working as a nurse practitioner,
Correct.
right? And then when did you decide to go into legal nursing? This is why we're here. But the backstory makes you who you are. So, I love that. So tell me a little bit about how you decided and why you decided to choose legal nursing.
Sure. So yes, I fast forward, moved back home to San Diego, been back for some time now. And sometimes when things come to me in threes, I tend to slow down and think a little bit more about it in terms of, is this an opportunity that is something that would be meaningful for me or that would be helpful? So legal nurse consulting really came to me in three different times in three different ways. And kind of the first time was just really in passing. Just, I got handed a pamphlet for, an educational series that someone was doing, and it wasn't too familiar at the time. So I did a little research, and it didn't end up working out with my schedule. So I kind of just let it go. A couple years later, then I received a communication from the California Board of Registered Nursing. As you renew your nursing license, they ask if you would be interested to provide information on open, cases for applicants for nurses, et cetera. So I started reading a little bit more, digging a little bit more. And then the last time that it kind of came back around to me was just a friend who's in the legal field who was like, "Hey, Lakeisha, you're very knowledgeable. Can you tell me a little bit more about this disease process or that?" So I gave them a bit of a snippet, like, "Hey, this is the disease process that you're interested in. This is the information I can provide. Have you thought about this? I'm not sure if this is helpful for you to understand the pathophysiology more." And the feedback that I received was very amazing. It was just, Lakeisha, you're very detailed and you're a great teacher and you explain things in such a great way. Have you ever thought of utilizing your at your healthcare expertise and your nursing knowledge to help with legal cases. Because he was like, hey, this would be very helpful to have for any legal team. So then I kind of started doing the deep dive, going down the rabbit hole of just really what is legal nurse consulting? How do nurses work in the legal field? How are they utilized and leveraged with personal injury attorneys, medical malpractice cases, et cetera? And I just really found there was a wealth of information out there, a lot of different people, different pathways to go about it. And it really sparked my interest, just really thinking that there's an opportunity to use my expertise in a different way. So, really thought about it. I'm a person who's very pensive. I like to think about things intently before I kind of make a final decision. And I decided, I was like, this is something that I can do. This is knowledge that I have. This is what will help attorneys and legal teams. And let's do this. And so I started my own LLC entitled Next Level Nurse Consulting back in January of 2022. And so I've been doing legal nurse consulting now for just over 2.5 years now. And I
Mm.
love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
Yeah. Did you, when you decided to do that, did you have any hesitation on it being your own business? I know I talk about that because a lot of nurses, we're in nursing and we're employed, and starting our own business isn't necessarily our first choice. And it's terrifying to some. So what about that? Did you embrace it? Were you excited about it, or were you nervous about it?
I was nervous.
Okay. I love the
I
honesty.
Yeah, very honest, transparent.
Mhm.
I was very nervous. I think you're very spot on. And as nurses, there's so much we know about caring for people. Um, to me, business, marketing, follow-ups, all of that is just not come second nature to me. That's a different muscle that I've had to build up and really strengthen and work on over the last couple of years. And it's something that it's been challenging. To be very honest, there's ups and downs in business. There's, difficult ways in terms of finding out what works for you, in terms of marketing and who are your potential clients. How do you let people know about your expertise? How do you put yourself out there? How do you network on LinkedIn? Or if you're in a room with attorneys and nurses, how do you stand out? How do you differentiate yourself? So it's been a different growth. It's been a different skill set that I've had to really learn, to really sharpen. I took the path of not running away from being nervous and being challenged. I definitely took it head on. I took time. I definitely wanted to pace myself. One thing about me, and especially with my business, I know there's different opportunities, there's different programs. Sometimes people will pay other consulting firms to help them. I think everybody finding their own path is what's important. And, to each his or her own, and you'll find what way works for you. For me, I found that I wanted to work through the challenges. I wanted to understand the elements of a business. What does it look like marketing? What are my projections for different quarters? What are my goals? And I just felt being involved at every level of my business, especially as it started, just gave me so much more commitment and dedication to it.
Mhm.
And I'm still learning every single day. I am still learning about business and, believing in myself and pushing forward, connecting, realizing the value that I provide and that others provide. We have amazing skills and knowledge. And I think the overall outcome has been incredible, just to put a lot of work in. And just to know, one of my favorite quotes is sometimes, right, the day that you plant the seeds is not the day that you enjoy the fruit.
Yeah.
So that is one thing I've learned throughout my business
Yeah.
is keep planting those
Yeah.
seeds. You may not see the sprouts now, but
Yeah.
with water, with nurturing, with time, and a positive attitude, which I find to be very important, you'll see the benefits and you'll see
Yeah.
your heart pay off.
Yeah. I love your transparency in saying, "Hey, I was nervous. I didn't have all the answers, and I didn't pretend to know all the answers."
Yeah.
So, number 1, Thank you for sharing that, because I think that that gives people a breath of fresh air, right? Because we also, as nurses, we're smart people, but it's hard to admit when when you're not, like, not ready for something or don't understand it. You understand it, everything else, but it's hard to admit when you don't. So I love that. But then I'm going to say, on the flip side, one of the reasons why I reached out to you to be a guest on this podcast was your marketing, because I kind of touched on this before we started this podcast, but wherever I go, there's Lakeisha. Wherever I go, there's Lakeisha. And it's not a competition thing, but I was so in awe and wowed by the fact that it's not just that you're there, because I'm a very big observant of, one of my favorite things about social media is the interaction between, it's the conversations on the outside. Like, here are the conversations, in a different form, but it's the conversations on social media that really make or break your connection.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is a very different beast, and watching your interaction on LinkedIn, it's very inspiring because you're doing it right. Like, as a social media uh, geek here, I can appreciate watching you work on social media because you have a genuine, you're creating genuine conversations. You're creating genuine love. You're stepping up where most people will sit back and watch, or most people will be hesitant in speaking up, or it's not even a matter of liking. I will say, everywhere I go, I see your name as liking things, but it's more than that. I also see the time you take in your responses. And that's very memorable. And so if I'm noticing that as a fellow legal nurse, or, just fellow human, then attorneys and your future clients are also noticing that. And I love the fact that you said that your intention is to plant the seeds. And that's exactly what I see. And that's exactly what you're doing, and it will only snowball in the future. So again, that was one of the reasons why I reached out to you, because I just watched it and I was like, man, you are absolutely, if not already incredibly successful, you are absolutely building those bridges and building those conversations in a place that's really challenging for 99% of us out there. So high five to you, girl. It just shows that you took that, we'll say it, fear. Most people will say, she was not fearful, but it's true. That's your truth. You took that and you were like, put the big girl pants on. We're going to just do this, and we're going to, fight through it. And I love the fact that you shared that, everything is intentional. You set your goals, where your numbers are. I know that a previous conversation with, I think it was my very first guest, Savannah, she talked about her numbers and knowing her numbers ahead of time. And because you're a business owner, and guess what? You were not a natural business owner. You learned to be a business owner. That's something that was right on. Check that box on a business owner's standpoint. So you're very intentional. You know your numbers. You set your goals, and you're not afraid to step up and step out, and in order to reach those goals, right? So I just wanted to take just a few words, or more than a few words, to tell you just how much I notice it. And like I said, if I notice it, then so many more others notice it. And just your genuine, you're just genuine on social media. So really great job, and keep doing it. And it's really fun to watch as just an outsider. So good job.
Appreciate that feedback. That honestly means so much, because That is my goal when I engage on LinkedIn or on social media, especially for me as a person, but also representing my business and myself as a businesswoman and a healthcare professional. I always want to be thoughtful and I also want to come across genuine. To me, connections are very important. Anybody who knows me well, personally or professionally, will know like Lakeisha is a person that wants to be connected. I love to learn names. I love to learn a little bit about people. And I think the connection is what makes us human, right? Is connecting with one another, finding what those connections can be, and also supporting each other. And so I find LinkedIn to be an amazing opportunity and network to just make my world a lot smaller and reach out to people from similar backgrounds, different backgrounds, engage in intellectual conversations, not always agreeing, sometimes hearing different perspectives that I, haven't considered, but also just wanting people to know who I am, a little bit more about myself. It's also sprinkled in with some positivity, some
Yeah.
motivation. I do like a weekly Wednesday post because I think community is also important and celebrating those wins. I think as professionals, we get excited about the end point and we're looking at the goalpost, but we're always moving it. Once we get that goal, we're on to the next one. I'm a big fan of slowing down in the moment and enjoying the journey and celebrating those wins. Like, okay, did you get that first client call? Did you send that email? Even sending the email is
Yeah.
a victory in itself, right? So just priding yourself in the steps along the way and not waiting to celebrate. But I think the beauty of having a business is it can be what you want it to be. And I think for me, I always want my business to stand with integrity, to be visible. So
Mhm.
I don't always want to, my marketing tactic or, technique is not always, sending and flooding emails. It's just, hey, I'm here. If you need me, you will know exactly how to reach me. But also, you know more about my voice, you know more about the person that you're going to interact with when you get on that email or when you get on the phone. So I'm
Yeah,
really,
you're doing it. That's exactly, if that's your intention, that's exactly what I see. So I mean, it's so funny because I have these questions and you're basically answering my questions as as we're going here. In what you just said, you answered the three questions I was just going to ask you, and so I'm going to wipe that out and put that away. But I was gonna ask you what your biggest accomplishment was, but I'm not going to ask you that because what you just said is that you celebrate the small wins along the way, which I think is just as important as your biggest accomplishment because we don't pat ourselves on the back enough to say, I sent that email. Oh my gosh, I took a big gulp and I sent it,
Mhm.
cross my fingers. And then I was going to ask, where do you feel like you shine? And you shine by just what you said. You're visible and people know that you're there and that was your intention. So you shine by being visible and being genuine and being trustworthy and being well spoken and someone that would would value your knowledge and expertise and your care that you would take with their cases because number one you're visible, but more than that you're genuine and you know how to have a conversation and you know how to connect and all those things. So you answered those questions. So I appreciate that for you or for me and your and listeners. I totally appreciate that.
Right.
What is one thing that you wish that you knew before you started your legal nurse consulting business?
That's a great question. I think one thing that probably would have been helpful to know upfront or for anyone who's thinking of starting out in legal nurse consulting is to probably two things. I would probably narrow it down to it's not a marathon.
Mhm.
Or I'm sorry, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? It's a long journey that you're going to be taking. I don't think that this or any success for me in my mind is overnight. I think it's the result of repeated steps, commitment, dedication, taking those steps, getting over fears, taking strides in new directions. So for anybody who's starting out in legal nurse consulting, I would say take that into consideration. Just know it will take time to get that first client. It will take time to feel more comfortable in those settings, but it will come. I think anybody who's willing to work hard for a goal and has a vision and is willing to take those actions, that they are on a good path to reaching them. I think the second thing that I would say, that I wish I knew starting out, would be embracing all other legal nurse consultants and other people in the community. Um, I'm a social person by nature, so like I said before, I love connection. Community is important to me, so that comes very natural to me. I love meeting new people and engaging. But I think what I didn't fully realize is how beautiful the community is. Even this opportunity, right? You reached out to me. I never would have had this had you not reached out to me. And so I'm grateful for that. I have, there's so many legal nurse consultants when I was starting out that took time to get on calls with me. They answered my questions, my emails. There's so many people that I've known and connected with that have referred me cases. I've referred them cases. So I think it's important. Yes, it's a business and we're all running our businesses in similar but also very different ways. But also, I would encourage people to not see other legal nurse consultants as just as competitors, but to see them as, other people who are doing this a similar passion, a similar goal and dream, but also as somebody that, is more than likely there and they want to see you win as well. And there's enough business out there for everyone. And I think how you interact with one another, it does speak to how you operate your business and how you are. So being open-minded, connecting, being kind, answering those questions that people have, being, welcoming and receiving, being a military brat too, that I am. I know what it's like to be the new kid on the block, to be at a new school and not have any friends. So for me, anytime there's new people coming into the community, I'm always, willing to answer questions, to jump on a call. So I would say for people starting out, or one thing that I would have loved to have known is just really embrace everyone as you're going through and take the opportunity to learn from everyone.
Yeah, I love that. And it kind of goes along with, it's things that surprise you is when once I started getting into it, was just how valuable. I mean, again, I'm like you. I love the conversation. I love connecting up, but just how valuable the relationships with other legal nurses is to you and to them. I mean, it's so much more valuable to build those relationships than I ever expected when I started. So, and the running theme, obviously, in this podcast too, is just how amazing the community is. Which, and I think on every episode we just say how amazing this community is, and it's true. There's truth to that, and I love the fact that you said that there's enough work to go around. I mean, think of how I'll tell you. Think of how many attorneys there are out there, and think of how many legal nurses that are doing this.
Mhm.
There's a big gap there. There's plenty of work for everyone. And so the fear of, stepping on other people's toes, no, actually, it's more valuable to be connected with other legal nurses than you think it is, right? Would you agree with that? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think being
Yeah.
connected is it's so helpful. Going in any journey, the support that you have helps you to move forward. We all have moments where we're very successful and we have new clients. So there's moments when you are in a lull. There's moments when you have questions and just want to bounce something off to somebody else. So I
Yeah.
agree 1,000%. I think the
Yeah.
connection in this community and the relationships are just incredible.
Yeah.
I just went to the AALNC's annual forum in April, and it's honestly like a reunion. I went last year and then coming back this year for my second year and just reconnecting with people that I know on LinkedIn that I talk to, but to see them in real life and connect again. Sometimes, some of the people were people I'd never met in real life. And um, I just think it's an amazing experience to be around so many other well-respected professionals and to use your skills to support one another, but also to grow together. I think
Yeah.
your path and, that, kind of moving forward on your path doesn't dim or take anything away from anyone else. So I love
Yeah.
the support that I've received and that I see.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So, and I didn't really touch on this. Are you still practicing clinically as well as legal nursing?
I am. I am
Okay.
still clinically active full time here in San Diego, and so a lot of the business that I do have, or the services that I offer in my business, are expert witness services. I do a lot of other services with attorneys, but I intend to remain clinically active because I really like the expert work, and also I just really love taking care of patients. So I
Yeah.
don't see myself leaving the bedside anytime soon.
Right.
Hopefully, come back, but not.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, you actually led me into my last question is where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? I always ask this question. So I'm going to say still at the bedside, still doing legal nursing, still doing expert work. Is there anything else that you see yourself in 5 years, adding or subtracting in your life?
That's a great question. I think within the next 5 years, I think you're exactly right. I see myself still working actively, taking care of patients at the bedside, maybe cutting back a little, but still working at least part time or more. Definitely want to continue with my legal nurse consulting business. I'm very excited for the growth I've had this year, this first quarter alone, honestly. So just really engaged and excited in terms of new ways to grow, new ways to attract additional clients, and also to support other legal nurse consultants. Also within that, outside of my business, and then my main job full time. I am involved in community service. I have a huge heart for giving back to those that are in need. So I'm very, very involved in a community service based organization. We're international and we do a lot. We do so much from mentoring young women, really showing them the importance of education in college, to all of your local walks, breast cancer walk. We just had the March of Dimes this past weekend to help with prematurity awareness. And also here in San Diego, I have a huge heart for the Monarch School, which is a school that really benefits children that are impacted by being unsheltered. So they do a lot of work to support these youth, just really thinking about the challenges that someone would encounter trying to get an education, going to school, but not having a home to live in
Mhm.
or a consistent
Mhm.
living space. So one big thing about me as well is all of my blessings that I have, I try to remain in gratitude, but I also try to give back. I think sharing your blessings and your gifts with other people is what makes the ripples in the world and what makes the world a better place. So I hope in the next 5 years I can continue to grow my business. Like I said, I'm a newlywed. I just celebrated 2 years with my husband.
Congratulations.
Thank
Yay.
you. Time flies. It feels like just yesterday we were planning a wedding, but
Yeah.
we really have a very active personal life as well. We love international travel. As I said, his family is on the East Coast, so we like to take our trips, travel. He does like to golf. I also, we like to travel together. So more of those type of things, slowing down more, enjoying
Yeah.
life. I think
Yeah.
one thing that I realize, especially in oncology, and I think that we've all realized in the past years post COVID is life can change very quickly, right?
Right.
The whole world can shut down, in a matter of days. Life as we know it can be very different. And I think similarly, every day at work, I see patients who, with a new cancer diagnosis, their life is completely different. Not saying that it's, all negative, but, a lot of our patients, they empower me by showing that you can have a cancer diagnosis, you can go through treatments, you can have a serious medical condition and live a very full life. And that, our patients teach us so much about the beauty of love and support from their family, but also living life to the fullest.
Yeah.
Just
I
really
love that.
understanding that time is short and, chase those dreams, sit in the uncomfort, take the trip, call your loved one,
Yeah.
tell them that you love
Mhm.
them. Life is, it changes.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you shared that. That's so important, and I try to live by that as well.
Mhm.
I would like in the show notes, I would like to share your Monarch, the link to the Monarch education, and any other links that you may find valuable to share so that others can, if they're looking to give back as well, that they can easily find that. So, where can we find you? We know we can find you on LinkedIn. Can we find you anywhere else besides for LinkedIn? And
Yes.
again, this will be in the show notes as well.
Yes, thank you as well for offering to post about Monarch School and other community organizations. I think we can do a lot together to serve people in need. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Um, I think for me, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very, very active. My first name is Lakeisha, last name is Falwell. So you can find me on there. Please, if there's questions, if there's anything that I said today that resonated, I'm always open for a healthy conversation, dialogue, Zoom meeting, coffee, just to exchange contact information and support each other. So definitely you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I know you'll have my email address. Be happy to share that as well. I probably won't read it here, but it's a long one. So you can reach out to me via my email. Or you can text or call me. I'll have my phone number on there as well. But it's an 858 number, 250-0570. Please feel free to reach out if there's attorney clients that I can help, other LNCs, or just other amazing humans to connect with.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. And one of the greatest things about this podcast is that you will definitely receive those messages, because every single one of my podcast guests have received amazing messages from listeners who resonated with what you said. And it is the most amazing feeling for me that I am able to bridge that gap for those conversations. It is something that I did not expect.
Mhm.
And it is a bonus that I take pride in. And I'm so grateful that that is what part of this podcast has created. So I am sure you will have plenty of messages in your inbox about this podcast. So thank you again for your time in what you shared. I loved every bit of this conversation, and I really look forward to continuing to hang out on LinkedIn and anywhere else and just seeing you succeed, even more. It's just really been a pleasure. So thank you, Lakeisha.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This has been an awesome opportunity. I, really, really appreciate your podcast and the platform that you're creating, and just allowing people to share their stories, but also to connect. So keep up the amazing work. A lot of people see it, and we really appreciate and value it. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us in this fun conversation on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting podcast. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and empowering as I always do. And I hope that you share this episode with your friends. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave us a review or comment, as I would love to share them in the future episodes. Or hop on over into my DMs and send me a quick message. I can be found on Instagram at anna.b.gray, on my website at limitlesslnc.com, and over on LinkedIn at Anna Gray. And I want you to remember, you are limitless. Until next time.